In the summer of 1991, South Lake Tahoe was the picture of an idyllic, safe American town, a place where children played freely and neighbors knew each other. At the heart of this community was 11-year-old Jaycee Dugard, a bright, smiling girl with her whole life ahead of her. But on the morning of June 10th, the illusion of safety in this mountain town would be shattered forever. The events of that day would begin an 18-year mystery, a story of unimaginable horror and ultimately incredible resilience. June 10th, 1991 began like any other day. Jaycee, wearing her favorite pink outfit, was walking to her school bus stop. As she reached the top of the hill, a gray car approached. The driver, Philip Garrido, leaped out and used a stun gun to incapacitate her. His wife, Nancy, was in the passenger seat and helped drag the screaming, disoriented child into the car. The entire abduction took mere seconds. Jaycee's stepfather, Carl Probin, witnessed the abduction from his home and raced after the car on his bicycle, but it was too late. The vehicle vanished, and with it, Jaycee Dugard. Jaycee's kidnappers were Philip and Nancy Garrido. Philip was a convicted sex offender on federal parole for a previous violent kidnapping and rape in 1976. He was diagnosed as a sexual deviant and was a known drug user. He drove the terrified child 120 miles to his home in Antioch. Behind this ordinary-looking house, hidden from view by fences, tarps, and trees, was a backyard compound that would become Jaycee's prison for the next 18 years. Jaycee's world shrank to a few hundred square feet. She was initially held in a soundproofed shed, hidden from sight and sound. The compound was a labyrinth of tents, tarps, and outbuildings, designed to conceal its inhabitants from the outside world. For the first several years, she was kept in near total isolation, her existence a closely guarded secret. Garrido used psychological manipulation, fear, and isolation to break her will and ensure her compliance. In 1994, 3 years into her captivity, the unthinkable happened. Jaycee had a child, fathered by her captor, Philip Garrido. 14-year-old Jaycee was forced to raise her child in the confines of the backyard, with no medical care, no schooling, and no contact with the outside world. In 1997, she gave birth to a second daughter. The girls were told to call the Garridos Mom and Dad, and were led to believe Jaycee was their older sister. Jaycee's 2 daughters grew up as ghosts. They never saw a doctor. They never attended school. They never experienced a world beyond the fence. Their entire reality was constructed by their captor. Despite over 60 visits from parole officers to the Garrido home over the years, the secret behind the backyard fence was never discovered. The system, designed to monitor a dangerous predator, had failed catastrophically. The facade began to crack on August 24th, 2009. Garrido, now a self-styled spiritual guru, brought Jaycee and her 2 daughters to the UC Berkeley campus to distribute religious literature. His bizarre behavior and the girls' nervous, furtive demeanor raised immediate red flags. Campus police officers, suspicious of the dynamic, contacted Garrido's parole officer This single phone call would set in motion the chain of events that would finally end an 18-year nightmare. On August 26, 2009, the Garridos were summoned to meet with parole agent Edward Santos. They brought Jaycee and the two girls with them. Agent Santos immediately began separating them and questioning their inconsistent stories.
I looked outside in the backyard, which was his backyard was like a typical backyard that was it wasn't atrocious, but it wasn't well kept. There was a lot of debris back there. It was just a mess back there. Looked like a junkyard. So there was nothing unusual about that. He nods his head 3 times and says, "A long, long, long time ago, I kidnapped her and raped her when she was a child." I asked him about the 2 little girls. Where are they? He said, "Oh, they're gone. They're gone. Their dad picked them up." Now, so I go, this isn't over, okay? I need to speak to those 2 girls' parents. I want to make sure that those parents know that you're taking them places, and that they know that they're aware that you're a 290 sex offender, parolee on parole. So tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, I want you in my office and those 2 little girls and a parent. And I looked over at Nancy and I said, "Listen, Nancy, I asked Philip to bring the parents of these girls here today." He didn't do that. If I don't speak with the parents of these girls, they're not leaving this office today. Immediately, Jaycee spoke up. She looked at me and she said, "I'm the mom. I'm their mother." And I looked at her and I said, "You're the mom?" And she kind of laughed and smiled and she said, yeah, I get that look all the time. I look really young, but really I'm 29. Jaycee grabs me by my arm, pulls me back, and says, "Hey, I'm sorry I lied to you, but I'll tell you what's going on." Without hesitation or anything, she says, I used to live in the state of Utah, and I lived in an abusive relationship with my husband. And I escaped that relationship with my daughters. He was going to kill me and my daughters. And I go, "Philip, if you had to do it all over again, knowing what you know now, knowing that you could be going to prison for the rest of your life, would you have brought the girls in?" And he looks at me and he goes, I would have done things differently, and I would have made sure that I would have never gone to prison.
Once separated from her captors, Jaycee was finally safe. One of the first things she did was call her mother. "Mom, it's me. It's Jaycee." After 18 years, Jaycee Dugard was coming home. She later described the overwhelming emotion of that moment, repeatedly telling her daughters, "I'm so happy. I'm so happy." In 2011, Philip and Nancy Garrido pleaded guilty to their crimes. Philip was sentenced to 431 years to life in prison. Nancy received 36 years to life. I chose not to be here today because I refuse to waste another second of my life in your presence. You stole my life and that of my family for your own selfish, disgusting needs. You do not matter anymore. The only power you have over me is the power I give you, and I give you none. A subsequent investigation revealed shocking failures in the parole system's supervision of Garrido. The state of California admitted its fault and paid Jaycee and her family a $20 million settlement. I wish I would have been able to discover you the first day I walked into that house. So, I am sorry for that. His apology echoed the sentiment of a system that had looked but had never truly seen. Jaycee Dugard's story is not just one of victimhood, but of profound resilience. She has reclaimed her narrative, writing 2 best-selling memoirs and establishing the Jack Foundation to help other families dealing with traumatic abduction. I survived, I'm now thriving. What you dwell on grows, so I choose to dwell on the good, on the future. From an 11-year-old girl stolen from a street to a woman who fought to reclaim her life, Jaycee Dugard's journey stands as a powerful testament to the strength of the human spirit. Her name is no longer a question on a missing poster. It is a declaration of survival,